Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant. Today, I'm going to be covering this book, Ancillary Justice. This is written by author Ann Leckie. It was a page turner. Once I picked it up, I had to finish it before putting it down, and then I read it again. This is a really good book, and like any other book, I'm only going to look for parts of a series at used bookstores, but I was able to find the rest of this trilogy, which is called the Imperial Raj trilogy. I was able to find books 2 and 3, and just like this one, I devoured it very quickly. Those books are amazing. I purchased this book for $5.98 at Coaz Books in early of 2024. For a couple years, it had been on my wish list. I saw the cover, and let's look at that cover again, and I thought it might be kind of action-y sci-fi. Instead, what I got was more of a space opera, but I'm really excited with what I got nonetheless. So I'd been putting it off because I was more in a fantasy mood than a science fiction mood, and so I would get around to this eventually. But once I picked it up, I got a really good story about identity and humanity and about resisting an authority. And that's what the whole trilogy is about. This one in particular is a bit more complex to read through than books 2 and 3. Book 1, Ancillary Justice, is a fascinating story about an AI. In this setting, it's a lot about stagnation as well. The Imperial, the Radchai Empire is built around a single leader. They're all human, and it is an advanced enough society that humans can live to be a couple hundred years old. And in this empire, there's a lot of idiosyncrasies within the text, within the way they speak, that are often highlighted in this book. So the word citizen is also the name of the empire. Radchai is literally the word for citizen, but the way it's written, the word for human is also the word for citizen, which is also the word for the name of the empire. So humans, according to the empire, are people that are citizens. If they are not a citizen, they are subhuman or not human. And there are a few alien species that we don't interact with in the story. The two main entities we really deal with are ship and station-based AI and humans or citizens, Radchai. And then we do also interact with non-citizen humans, and there's a bit of a disconnect because in the empire, within the language of the empire, only one pronoun exists: she, her, hers. There's no gender neutral or masculine pronouns in the way we would think of it. There's a singular gender neutral that uses the English feminine forms. But there are some cultures that we interact with in books 1 and book 2 where the non-citizen cultures use gendered pronouns. And in Ancillary Justice, one of the worlds that the main characters interact with is one of those worlds where they use gendered pronouns. So one of the characters, Savardin, is a male human being. But in the context of the Empire's language, he is referred to only by she. But in the context of this one planet where gendered language is a thing, he is referred to by he, him, his. So there's a bit of a weird disconnect where you're trying to maybe suss out, is this a male character, is this a female character, and only certain people are going to be interacting with the gendered pronouns in that way. The main character of this is the warship troop carrier Justice of Torin. It is a large ship with a lot of moving parts. In the setting, certain classes of ships have something called ancillaries. Ancillaries are slave humans, whether criminals or whether non-citizen dissidents or whatever. A human being that is not a proper citizen has been turned into a slave body for a ship or a station to operate with. And they are all hooked up to the same network, which the ship, it's kind of like its memory drives and its programming and all of that operate the ancillaries, which again are human beings that have been hijacked by the technology of this empire. So Justice of Torin is a troop carrier ship 2,000 years old, and that also should tell you something about this. The empire is stagnant. It is ruled by the same ruler throughout all of its multi-thousand year history, and that ruler insists on everything being perfect by its standards, and everything was perfect when it was first taking control of the empire. So the empire is 3,000 years old. Justice of Torin as a ship is 2,000 years old, and for 2,000 years the AI has been kind of developing a personality, but the lord of this empire is so wound tight in her thinking. If it's not human, it can't have a personality. If it doesn't have a personality, it can't be a real person. There is no personhood unless it is a citizen. And an AI cannot be a citizen. But this is a 2,000-year-old ship, and at some point in time, it developed a passion for songs. And they mention this multiple times in the trilogy, AI, as they get older, are known to have things that displease them and known to have things that please them. But the only things that really interact with that are people that understand that it has things it likes and dislikes, but still refuse to acknowledge its personhood. The troop carrier, Justice of Torin, has mostly ancillaries operating on its ship, but some humans, and within its crew of independent humans are some that it likes and some that it dislikes. As the blurb on the inside of the cover says, Sevardin Vendai was no concern of mine anymore, wasn't my responsibility, and she had never been one of my favorite officers. I had obeyed her orders, of course, and she had never abused any ancillaries, never harmed any of my segments as the occasional officer did. I had no reason to think badly of her. On the contrary, her manners were those of an educated, well-bred person of good family. Not towards me, of course. I wasn't a person, I was a piece of equipment, a part of the ship, but I had never particularly cared for her. Sevardin is one of those officers that is an unfavorite of Justice of Torin. And the narrative jumps between multiple time frames, one occasionally 1,000 years ago, one in the present time, and then one about 25 years before the present. In the overall setting, one other major aspect is that the Emperor, this Lord of the Radchai, is also an ancillary kind of entity. She has lived for 3,000 years, by being a Gestalt mind, where all of the different individuals connected to her, clones of her, are connected over the vast reaches of space as one entity, or it's believed to be one entity. But as the book points out pretty quickly, it's hard to be one part of thousands without eventually developing some independent thought. And the Lord of the Radchai believes it is perfect and none of its segments are going to have independent thoughts that are not the same as the whole. But an incident happens where there is a treaty with a very powerful alien species that could destroy all of humanity, citizen or non-citizen humanity, species, human, humanity. But the treaty requires that humans not take up arms against non-human species. You can fight amongst yourselves, don't fight other creatures. And at some point before the story, there is an interaction with an alien species, and at some point in the history of this empire, the Lord of the Radchai split based off of one main decision, which was whether a genocide was excusable or not. If everything I do is perfect and just, then because I ordered that genocide, it must have been just. That is one of the thought processes. And the other one says, we can't just move on from this. We have to accept that it was wrong and heal from that. And that's the other thought process that we interact with in Ancillary Justice. And it's just really interesting how a lot of the conflict comes from those two branching thought processes within a greater Gestalt mind, but how one human interacts with her surroundings and discovers this supposedly perfect being is actually split into two. The Lord of the Radchai knows that it's got that conflict with itself, but because it must be perfect, refuses to accept publicly that is the case. And so anyone who stumbles upon that secret must be killed. 25 years before the present day, a Lieutenant On, a young favorite of Justice of Torin, a lieutenant on serving on the ship Justice of Torin, discovers that the Gestalt mind of the Lord of the Radchai is split into factions among itself. And because of that, the Lord of the Radchai orders Justice of Torin to execute the lieutenant. This is a entity, an AI, with conflicting messages from different individuals throughout its history, individuals that have override powers, the Lord of the Radchai. Both halves of this entity have interacted with Justice of Torin and set different parameters under which it can act. And among all of these different parameters, all of these different restrictions, it is told to kill, to execute its favorite human on board. And so everything that happens is because of that one decision by the Lord of the Radchai to bring this ship fully under its heel. I am going to tell the ship to execute its favorite. And so the ship executes the lieutenant. And then it shoots one of the ancillaries of the Gestalt mind, the Lord of the Radchai, Anander Mianai. The other ancillary of Anander Mianai on the ship immediately knows its pair is killed and this AI has gone rogue. The Justice of Torin is destroyed. All but one ancillary of a ship that used to have hundreds of ancillaries is dealing with feelings of loneliness, feelings of regret, feelings of revenge, anger, and feelings of nostalgia. And so it finds Sayvarden was from 1,000 years ago, but miraculously was discovered frozen in a pod, an escape pod from a destroyed ship, brought back out of time like Captain America, but hundreds of years more than he. Sayvarden is now houseless. Her clan, Vendai, has been gone for hundreds of years. Her ship is gone. Everyone she ever knew is gone. Her clan, because her clan is gone, so is all of her money. Sayvarden is eventually picked up by Justice of Torin, the lone singular Ancillary. It connects with Sayvarden. It saves her from addiction. It saves her from a death. And she does everything she can to keep Sayvarden alive. And Sayvarden feels like she owes a great debt to the Ancillary of Justice of Torin. But Sayvarden isn't told this is an Ancillary of Justice of Torin, doesn't figure out who this person that saved her is until late in the story. And it's a revenge story that has been planned for 25 years. It is a story of regret, of sorrow. It is dealing with so many emotions. The Ancillary has only one goal in mind, in theory, just revenge. But during this revenge plot also picks up one of its former officers. It's kind of at odds with itself. It knows what it wants, but it keeps on sidetracking because it is a person that likes its past. Ancillary Justice, one of my favorite books of all time. I love this. I really, really love it. And I hope if anyone here is interested in a drama, this is a good one. It's sci-fi, kind of, but it doesn't interact with the setting and the way a lot of military sci-fi does, which is that a lot of military sci-fi stories in general are about the advancement of technology, whereas the Ancillary Justice and the Imperial Raj trilogy is about the stagnation of technology, the stagnation of humanity, and in a way it is kind of like moving the pieces forward, but in a way of the personhood of these AI. Justice of Torin is an amazing character. I think it's called 1ESC, which is the unit, and I cannot spend enough time ranting about this book. It is just that amazing, and I highly encourage anyone who finds it to pick it up. It's a bit more than a decade old, copyright 2013. This is first edition 2013, October 2013. Really cool book. I highly encourage people to pick it up. So yeah, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book rant.